I once knew someone who was under the impression that he had the word warrior inked on his arm, but a different friend pointed out that it actually said drunk arsehole. Given that he was both a jerk and frequently intoxicated, I decided to accept that explanation. While I didn't witness it firsthand, two co-workers returned from lunch one day laughing uncontrollably, claiming they had seen a woman with a tattoo, presumably Chinese, that translated to "not a tattoo." A friend of mine has a leg tattoo that reads "Wo kan budong izu," which roughly translates to "I can't read Chinese." It attracts a lot of attention during the summer. We both live in China. A friend of mine got a tattoo he believed meant faith, but it actually turned out to be the word for soup. As a Japanese speaker, I encountered a guy with a tattoo that read Tonsho. Someone told him that ton meant pig and sheng, katsu, meant to win. He assumed it meant defeating pigs, possibly referring to police. However, tonkatsu, actually refers to pork cutlet. I didn't have the heart to correct him. A work colleague, who later became a long-term friend, had Pom Pui tattooed on his shoulder. After visiting Thailand, the locals nicknamed him Pom Pui, claiming it meant happy fat man. He was indeed fat, cheerful, and a lovely guy. He wasn't aware of the correct spelling or pronunciation, but even after 20 years, he still cherishes that tattoo. I once saw someone with a tattoo that combined the characters for big and father, which I assumed was a version of Big Daddy. The man got visibly upset and insisted it actually meant eternal wealth. All right then. Although not Chinese or Japanese, I have a tattoo that was meant to symbolize fearlessness. A friend who studied Mandarin informed me it translates to small cake. One day, I encountered a guy covered in tattoos, including some Chinese characters on his forearm. When I asked him about their meaning, he casually replied, "Just a bunch of random Chinese letters." I pressed him, asking, "Which ones?" He corrected me, saying, "No, it says, just a bunch of random Chinese letters." I thought that was a clever response. My uncle has the phrase egg drop soup inked on his wrist in Mandarin. He tells everyone it means different things: strength, destiny, etc. But the real reason behind it is so that when he's extremely hungover, he can visit the Chinese restaurant. With sunglasses and noise-canceling headphones on, he simply points to his tattoo and stays in his own peaceful world while enjoying his favorite hangover meal. And yes, he was hungover when he got it. The tattoo, featuring the 4 elements with the words dirt, hot, blow, wet, was quite amusing. There's a trend of young white people getting tattoos of Asian symbols. Many believe they understand the meanings, but often they don't. This isn't my story, but a friend of mine who can read kanji once noticed a girl's tattoo in class. Curious, she asked what it said, and the girl responded, "Hi, Princess." It turned out, however, that it actually read Pig Princess. I knew a guy who had a full Yakuza-style tattoo done before turning 20, hoping to show it off in Japan and join the Yakuza. I'm not sure if he's still alive, but he was always a fool. Although I don't speak Japanese or Chinese, I once had an art academy classmate who had 2 kanjis tattooed on each shoulder. She believed they meant eternal happiness after spotting them in a book at a flea market. I copied the kanji, looked them up on Google, and they roughly translated to foot fungus. Yuck. The kanji were zujun. It wasn't a tattoo, but I knew a girl who sewed some Japanese characters onto her bathrobe just because they looked nice. The translation? Tokyo Fire Department. A guy had Bian Tai Wairen tattooed on his arm, claiming it meant lover of Asian beauty. In reality, it translates to foreign pervert. I'm half Japanese, and I saw a guy with the tattoo Tian Li running down his arm. He probably thought it meant boy, man, but Tian Li actually translates to rice field power. Rice field power. My mom is Japanese, and she would often point out tattoos to me. Since I don't speak Japanese, I couldn't provide exact translations or characters. But she mentioned that a common mistake people make is pairing two characters together without understanding their combined meaning. For example, 1. A woman with the characters for sexy and woman that actually meant whorehouse. 2. A guy with sex and freak on his chest, which really meant something like predator or pervert. She'd always giggle when seeing these tattoos. I speak Mandarin, and I have a reversed story to share. While at the beach in Taiwan, I saw a huge, muscular Taiwanese guy walking with his girlfriend. On his back, in large Gothic letters, was the phrase "Salt Dude," flanked by swords. When I mentioned that it was an unusual choice, he explained he thought it meant swordsman. When he found out the true translation, well, I wouldn't want to be the artist who did that one. While stationed in Japan, a friend decided to get a tattoo from a random artist outside the base. He wanted a Shinto quote symbolizing a prosperous life, but ended up with a kanji that roughly meant "fat fish eat long." The Japanese workers at the shop nicknamed him Fat Fish for the next 3 years, and even people from other commands learned his new nickname. I once met a girl while backpacking in China who intentionally had the characters for prostitute tattooed on her hip. She found it amusing and figured she'd only show it to those she chose. One of the Chinese guys at our hostel was horrified and suggested she get another tattoo below it that said, "Only joking." I, 27F, don't understand Chinese or Japanese, have the characters for strawberry on my shoulder. One day at the gym, a girl who could read the language saw it and said, "Oh, strawberry, I love your tattoo." I explained the reason behind the tattoo, a long story involving strawberries, and another girl overheard. She showed us her tattoo and claimed it meant wisdom. But the first girl quickly corrected her, saying, "That says turtle." Here's the full story. My grandmother passed away from cancer in 2010. Afterward, I bought frozen strawberries to make smoothies, which reminded me of my childhood when she'd make jam from the strawberries she grew. After she passed, I decided to get a strawberry tattoo, and coincidentally, during a trip to a Chinese restaurant, my fortune cookie read, "To remember is to understand," and the Chinese word inside was strawberry. I later got the tattoo, and the fortune is now in a special box at home. I have a tattoo of shrimp dumplings, Hargao, a decision I consciously made because I'm half Chinese and adore shrimp dumplings. When a Chinese girl asked me if I knew what it meant, I laughed and said, "Of course, I love dumplings." My Chinese mother wasn't impressed, but after a chuckle, she agreed it was very fitting for me. A guy was so proud of his grandson that he had "I love my grandson" tattooed on him. However, when someone likely Googled "I love my grandson," the result came out as "I love fat boys." Oops. A friend of a friend wanted a tattoo that said "bad ass," but it ended up translating to "evil butt." In high school, I took Mandarin, and my teacher once told us about a woman who had the word Mian Fei tattooed on her, probably thinking it meant free in a free-spirited way. In reality, it means free as in no cost. While learning Japanese, I saw someone showing off a tattoo on their wrist, claiming it was deep and meaningful. It was in katakana, so I took a glance and realized it said kero. Kero, the sound a frog makes. They had ribbit tattooed on their wrist.